PhD. Rabbi Richard Prass will be officiating. For those of you who are here, I ask everyone to be sure your cell phones have been turned off, and we appreciate those of you who are online. At this time, the Rabbi Prass will begin the sacred funeral ceremony.
Going in the sun.
Okay, whatever you need to do.
We're going to begin in just a moment with the ceremony of Kriya, and each of you have your Kriya ribbons. With cold fall weather, it takes an extra second to find it in the fall. That's okay. You have done so much to care for him, and this is a time to let all of us care for you. The Kriya ribbon is a way so that when everyone sees you, they know that you are hurt and broken and in need of comfort and support, and we want to let them see that so that they can be there for you just as your father and your husband was there for you. The Kriya ribbon is, even if you're the greatest seamstress or tailor in the world, it will never be the same when you re-sew it after you tear it. Just as we know that your life will never be the same without him, this begins that healing process of letting us know where you are at and letting all of us know how and that we can be there for you. So the blessing is a one sentence in Hebrew and English. I'll have you repeat after me. And if the traffic's too loud or Frank Sinatra singing wherever is too loud, I'm happy to speak louder. I love the Frank Sinatra playing. Yes. And then I'll prompt you to tear it. So first in Hebrew, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, O God, the judge of truth. And go ahead and take a moment to tear it. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up, renewed, and the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood where we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Death has taken our beloved Herbert Kohn. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Herb's love that united us in life, in which death cannot sever, for his companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of sacred scriptures that bring us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. No text from our tradition has been more of a comfort, more of a staple, more of a hug than the 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar binotesha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yanchileni nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo. If you would like to join with me in the English translation of the 23rd Psalm, you'll find it on the inside of your leaflet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the Bible, in the book of Kohelet, we read, "The eye never has its fill of seen. Young or old, those who depart this life never see enough of their world, never complete their task, never cherish their loved ones enough before they are called home. How they yearn for yet another respite from this final summons, and how we yearned to have them close to us for yet another challenge in our lives, yet another joy, yet another precious moment together. God, be now with those whose hearts are broken, because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. Console them at this hour. Be near to them, and when light seems distant, sustain them, O God, until that time of healing." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. In the book of Job, we read, "Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach." God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. We'll pause now for a moment of silent prayer and to have a moment for our own private and silent memories. May these meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. This week, Jews around the world are reading from Genesis chapter 1. In the second verse, we read that before God created the world, everything was tohu vavohu. This Hebrew phrase is often translated as dark or formless or empty. And as we gather today to bury Dr. Herbert Kohn, many of us are feeling like we are in tohu vavohu, a dark valley left with an empty feeling. Yet when we turn to the third verse of this week's Torah portion, we read the words, "Let there be light." Where can we find light at this sad and difficult time? I would offer that there is so much light when we recount and retell about the remarkable life of Dr. Herb Kohn. These stories and lessons show how much he created during his 85 years of life. When I asked some of the family members to tell me a little about him, I was in awe at how quickly, how lightly, and how joyously stories of his life rolled off their tongues. That itself is a beautiful testament to the life that he lived. His Judaism was a source of pride and light in his life. His family describes him as a cultural and ethnic Jew. He studied at yeshiva when he was a teenager and thought about becoming a rabbi. Early in life, he loved going to shul. And throughout life, he loved singing Ein Keloheinu, Yigdal, Ki Mitzion at the top of his lungs. Some years ago, he was in a car accident with someone who wasn't Jewish. No one was hurt, and there wasn't much damage to the vehicle, so he told the other person who caused the accident to just let it go. The other person, surprised, asked Herb how he could repay him, and he answered, "Just remember I'm a Jew, and I did something kind." He took pride in his being Jewish and wanted others to see the Jewish people in the same bright light that he did. Now, his learning and his studies and his work warrant such a proud light to his family, colleagues, and to his field. After graduating from the University of Illinois, he received his master's degree from Roosevelt University and his PhD from the Illinois Institute of Technology. As a professor of neuropsychology, he was a highly accomplished analysis of EEG data, and he's a diagnostician of brain trauma. He took an extended sabbatical in Israel in the 70s to study the advanced techniques for treating brain injuries. For his work in this field back in the US, he received awards for his outstanding contributions to the field. And despite this long list of professional accomplishments, his work wasn't everything, because for him, family always came first. And that leads me to another thing that brings light to the story, in which he was a great character. He loved music, especially Frank Sinatra, which we've heard a little of, and I'm told we'll be able to hear a little more soon. Rodgers and Hammerstein, and so many more. He had a song for every noun that you could think of. He was a walking TikTok app before we even knew what TikTok was. He loved to sing, he loved to whistle, and he had a healthy shoe fetish, emphasis on healthy shoe fetish, which probably started early in life when he worked at a shoe store. Not only did it need to be a nice shoe, but it needed to fit properly. He would even stop strangers in the street to give them advice on how their shoes could fit properly. Another light in his life was you, Marilyn. Both of you studied down at the University of Illinois, and your February birthdays are days apart. One weekend where you hadn't yet known one another, hadn't yet met one another, you both were on the train home to go to your respective homes in Chicago. And he noticed you right away, and you ended up with seats facing one another, unfortunately with his knees squarely in your way and causing a little bit of a problem. But still, he asked you out, and the first date went so well that on the second date, he said that the two of you would marry someday. You told him he was crazy. But lovingly, Marilyn, you would agree, and your family would agree, that you both were correct. He was a little bit crazy, and you would marry someday. You dated for 1 year, had a 1-year engagement, and were married in December 1957. Together you celebrated 62 years of marriage. What a light to everyone who knows you. You and the marriage you shared with him are such an important part of his story. Michael and Sharon, his children, you brought such further light into his life. Sharon, you always felt like a daddy's girl with him wrapped around your finger. But you honor him when you recount that he wasn't a pushover. He was just incredibly giving. He would help fix things for others, babysit grandkids, and he was a grandfather who actually changed diapers. Not a very common thing. You remember that he had big shoulders for you to lean on. Michael, you're sports crazy. But your dad didn't care about sports so much, but he took interest in it because it involved you. He was a Cub Scout parent for you. He would happily watch baseball because he was with you. And he would force you to be handy around the house or to work on that car because he wanted to do it with you. You both recall that he was a do-it-yourself kind of person, building closets, painting, raking, dragging you along to do some of the raking. And one time in New Jersey, having all of you balancing on stools, wallpapering a bathroom. You also remember how he hated that fence in your house in Jersey. So together, he dragged you out, took you all out, took down the fence, and planted 12 large evergreen trees. And after all these projects, there would always be ice cream together. You remember how he loved to read, often taking on 3 books at a time. He knew everything, and sometimes it was aggravating that he was often right. Actually, I think you told me he was always right. And he passed on his love of reading to the two of you. And family dinners for him were a must. Michael and Sharon being with you, sharing interests with you, doing things with you brought light to his life. And the lights which filled his life grew in number with his beloved grandchildren, Eliana, Emily, Samara, Cameron, and Jason. Eliana remembered how supportive he was. He would go to band shows, musical shows, and black belt tests. And he would embarrass her by proudly yelling bravo at all of them except the black belt test. Samara, you remember that he always cared about what his grandkids liked. You could initiate a 15-minute conversation on topics of your interest, which he knew absolutely nothing about. He liked going to everything that a grandchild was in, including soccer games. And if you didn't like how you looked in glasses, he would tell you why you look good in them and that he liked them. Emily, you remember he would often be confused for Santa Claus and how he loved your college. Cameron, you remember him talking at restaurants and using specific Italian words, even if he didn't know much Italian. And if it wasn't Italian restaurant, that didn't matter. He was still going to use them. And Jason, you were his only grandson. And that earned you a unique love and an extra special hug. When he would visit California and stay at your house, he would wake up every morning and greet you with the same Hebrew words every day. Manishma, kol beseder. How are you? Everything's okay. And it was very okay with him because he loved having you in his life. He was known amongst all of the grandkids as giving the biggest, bone-crushing, warm hugs. He was supportive educationally, and he would sing at waiters at restaurants. He is a character, and he is a light in your lives, and each of his grandchildren shine brightly in his. And these stories could go on, these stories should go on in the days to come. Dr. Herbert Kohn lived a wonderful life, filling it with light and surrounding himself by the light of learning, Judaism, hard work, and most of all, a loving family. When you, his friends and family, feel the tohu vavohu, the darkness and the emptiness, I pray that you will tell and retell of all these light stories that filled his life. His memory is already a blessing, and together we can each learn from him, tell about his life, and make the light of his life shine even more brightly. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Into your care, we entrust the spirit of Dr. Herbert Kohn, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. We come now to the El Malei Rachamim prayer. In this prayer, there is a beautiful and powerful metaphor of asking God to take the soul of Herb into God's warm embrace. Just as the grandkids talked about a warm hug, just as all the stories talk about him being such a giving person. Here we say, God, please take our loved one and care for his soul. El Malei Rachamim shochen bamromim, hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei shechina im kedoshim utorim kezohar harakia mazhirim. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Dr. Herbert Kohn, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. We have two more acts to do here at the grave. This next one is the Mourner's Kaddish, which you will find on the back of the leaflet. In this prayer, to remind all of us, you'll never hear the word death. You hear the word chayim, the Hebrew word for life. This is a difficult time, and not a time that you planned for or expected. So what we are here to do is to thank God and praise God for the life and for the memories, and that chayim, which is so meaningful to the people gathered here physically and the many people gathered here through the technology. If you would like to rise and join with the family in this traditional Kaddish recitation. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עומי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה. וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Go ahead and be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, the gentleman from the cemetery going to lower his casket. The Shiva information is on the service folder for those of you who are here, and for the many people that are online, you can find all the Shiva information and memorial contributions to the Anti-Defamation League. That information is on our website. This time, we're going to lower his casket.